Chapter 1, 9 Serenity's Secret Records. You are listening at novelfull.audio. On the highest platform on Devil Peak stood a black-garbed man with rapt attention. High above the clouds, the sun and moon hung side by side, flooding the land below in their warm glow and sharp coldness. The man took deep breaths as he spread his arms toward the sky, and the lights gathered in his palms. And the world dimmed. A foul wind stirred, wreathing with endless howls of agony from untold ghosts. The wind picked up the man's elegant hair, revealing a demonic face behind. The sun and the moon dimmed while the man grew in power from the rays. Soon, even dark energy began to rise from him. With his face battered by the freezing winds, the dark energy grew thicker until it covered him whole. He released a breath and an evil smile adorned his face. Rumble. With a loud sound as the trigger, the 4 mountains in vicinity erupted while Devil Peak itself was racked by terrible tremors. The man absorbing the essences of the sun and moon opened his eyes. With a space-rending sound, 7 flashes of light appeared. As the light scattered, there stood 7 figures radiating ruthless power. His eyebrows shook but a fraction as the man spoke in an eerie voice, "How are the 7 of you here? Didn't you all despise us demonic cultivators to no end? Humph, Demonic Emperor, Zhuyi, isn't it obvious why we're here?" An old man stroked his white beard as he gave a look of disdain. His heart skipped a beat and Zhuyi sounded out, "Geezer Sword Emperor, I do not know what you mean. Humph, stop faking it and take out the 9 Serenity's secret records." A female Taoist stepped arrogantly as she threw her chin forward. Zhuyi paled. It had been only a month since he found the legendary 9 Serenity's Emperor's dwelling. After brushing death countless times in the process, he finally obtained the written accounts he wished to study for all his life. How was it that they caught wind of this? He suddenly recalled something and his face grew darker by the second. "Zhao Chen, come out!" shouted Zhuyi. A cheery voice rang through the empty forest on the mountain. Immediately, a handsome youngster in white robes walked from behind the 7, smiling, all the while as he made a curt bow to Zhuyi. Ha, master, did you ask for me?" Zhuyi glared with hatred at the hypocrite and said, "Is this your doing?" "Yes," nodded Zhao Chen with a smile. "Did you also cancel the guarding array?" "Yes." "Why?" "I never slight you in the least." Zhuyi clenched his fist as murderous intent flared out from his eyes. Despite being a demonic cultivator, he normally did not kill without reason. If he did, he was just acting out on his nature. Else, those righteous cultivators would have come to end him much sooner. Zhao Chen, for that matter, was an orphan that Zhuyi took in when he saw his talent. Yet, who'd have thought the day would come when Zhao Chen would betray him? Despite putting a front with his calm demeanor, before Zhuyi increasing killing intent, Zhao Chen's feet betrayed him as he took 2 steps back, moving closer to the 7 beings behind him. "Master, I understand your kindness is as heavy as a mountain. But that doesn't give you the right to steal the 8 Emperor seat and cast me in your shadow for all eternity. Even more so, regarding the 9 Serenity's secret records. Ever since you've obtained it, you've trained alone, even afraid of me catching a glimpse of it." Zhuyi heart clenched when he heard this. Zhao Chen would never know he did it for his sake. Having low cultivation and going head first into studying the 9 Serenity's secret records would deviate one's cultivation. He had opted to understand it in its entirety and only then impart it to him. Yet all his plans were ruined in just a short month. Ha, well said. Zhao Chen, you're a true disciple. Zhuyi roaring laughter reached the heavens and so did his rage. "Since it is so, Master will give you a taste of the 9 Serenity's secret records." "Zhuyi, it is not your place for such unbridled words in the presence of us 7. The white-bearded old man stepped before Zhao Chen. "Humph, everyone in the sacred domain knows me as the 8 Emperor. I could care less if all 7 of you emperors come at me together. No sooner said than done, Zhui Yifan launched a palm at Zhao Chen. A black claw flashed in the sky reaching out for him. His eyes shrunk, face paled, and retreated with haste, fear having taken its grip on the youth. In the face of that powerful claw, the old man drew a sword. A sword wave flashed and the black claw was turned to nothing. Humph, 9 Serenity's secret records is nothing great. The old man stood in the wind with his sword ready, disdain all over his face. Zhui Yifan smiled and waved his palms. Geezer, stop being so arrogant. Boom. As if endless thunders were rumbling, the sky was covered by thousands of black palms, bearing down on the 7. Each palm was twice as big as the claw. Such power reached a new height that even the 7 were in shock. How can this be? Did he break through to the sacred stage? Sword Emperor sucked in a cold breath at the sight. As they watched, they could feel bravery leaving them. Not even 7 emperors together were a match against a sacred stage expert. Zhao Chen's face grew paler as regret gnawing his heart. Who'd have thought just a month of practice would elevate Zhui Yifan to such height in power? Humph, damn traitor, this is the end for you. Sneered Zhui Yifan. Whoosh. A light fell from the heavens above, piercing the black hands and went straight for Zhui Yifan. With no time to react, the light passed right through him. Scarlet blood spurted from his mouth and the thousands of black hands vanished. Zhui Yifan looked with his wan face at the sky to see a middle-aged man basked in a holy aura of light. Saint. Zhui Yifan bit his lips in defiance. He knew in his heart the newcomer's intention. Demonic Emperor Zhui Yifan, this saint represents the sacred domain in retrieving the Demon Emperor's legacy. If you hand it over, your life shall be spared. The surroundings and people entered his eyes, yet none of them were reflected within. He wouldn't even deign to look at Zhui Yifan, if not for having the 9 Serenity's secret records. This was the strongest saint in the sacred domain. Even Emperor stage experts were mere ants before him. With a miserable chuckle, Zhui Yifan took out a dazzling multi-colored jade slip from his bosom. The mere sight of it changed the expressions of everyone present, especially saints. With a look of derision to all around him, Zhui Yifan jeered, "What righteous cultivators, what saint? Aren't you all just thieves lusting a poor man's wealth? I won't let any of you get one word from the 9 Serenity's secret records even if I have to destroy it." As if to prove his conviction, a powerful energy rose up from his body. Damn! He's gonna self-destruct. Sword Emperor's eyes shrank, speeding further away, with the other not far behind. Only the saint exploded in holy wrath and charged for Zhui Yifan. Stop! With a proud smile, Zhui Yifan pinched and the jade slip was turned to dust right under the saint's eyes. The rage and bitterness he saw in the saint as he gnashed his teeth elicited an unrestrained laughter from Zhui Yifan. Boom! His laughter was soon accompanied by powerful shock waves leveling the entire Devil Peak. As the smoke and dust cleared, it was soon clear to see the angry face of the saint, along with his worse-for-wear clothes. Even in the face of such a terrifying explosion, a saint can come out of it without so much as a scratch. The Sword Emperor came before the saint to express his admiration. The saint snorted and was about to leave. It was then Zhao Chen blocked him. "Please wait, saint. Demonic Emperor Zhua is cunning and deceitful. If he possesses someone, just from knowing the 9 Serenity's secret records, he will one day come to exact vengeance upon us all." Humph, his self-destruction was down to his soul. What possession? He waved his sleeve and vanished. The hearts of everyone present eased after hearing this. With a saint present, an emperor stage expert would find it impossible to escape with their soul even if they self-destructed. It was a pity for the loss of the ancient demon emperor's legacy, 9 Serenity's secret records. As people gazed upon the ruins of Devil Peak, they each felt differently. Some were rejoicing, others lamenting, while most were feeling pity. Sylvan. Yo, we are picking up this novel since there are some people asking for this. I'm also personally interested in this story. As for how many chapters a week, this week we'll have 1 chapter. Update you guys on the next chapter. Chapter 2, Demonic Emperor's Rebirth. You are listening at novelfull.audio. In the dead of night, even the moon's radiance was snuffed out by the black clouds. Bodies laid in a pile in a quiet part of the forest, the aftermath of a gruesome battle. The air reeked of blood, drawing all kinds of wild animals to feast on their flesh. Ugh! Among the countless chomping sounds of animals, from amongst the bodies, a young man let out a groan. Ears twitched and the animals approached the source in silence. Thump! With a loud sound, 2 corpses were thrown to the side to reveal a blood-stained figure wrestling out from the pile. The animals jumped 2 steps back in fright, but when they noticed he was alive, they came back with a vengeance to rob life from him. Yet, the youth hardly noticed the imminent danger, still sat there in a daze. Is this the current me? He checked his hands as his eyes glazed over. Da-da-woo. A wolf's howl echoed as the beast sprung towards the youth. He turned his head, his eyes shining with bloodthirst from his blood-stained face. The killing intent was akin to 2 swords stabbing into the wolf's eyes. Whoosh! The wolf grounded to a halt, shivering as it curled backwards. The rest of the animals were also making a run for it when they watched those demonic pair of eyes. Despite his weak appearance, the animal's instinct screamed at them of the danger the youth posed. As silence set in once again, the youth took a deep breath and closed his eyes. His name was Xianxia, 15 years of age, a servant of the Luo clan at Cloud Manor. His life was happy and carefree, until 3 days ago when a band of Black Wind Mountain bandits butchered the manor. He along with some guards escorted the young master and young miss as they fled, only to find his end in this forest at the hand of their pursuers. In his final breaths, he was filled with an obsession. It was this that drew the drifting demonic emperor Zhuyifan's resentment and allowed the demonic emperor to possess him. Zhuyifan's eyes flashed with demonic glee. Ha, Sword Emperor, Zhao Chen, you would have never imagined the 9 Serenities secret records has a way of possessing someone without the need of a soul. Wait for me, I will soon return to sacred domain and behead you myself. Only Zhuyifan's mad laughter echoed in the bleak forest. Even the other animals chewing on corpses were startled into fleeing. Cough! A sudden cough cut his raving laugher short as his eyes turned like a hawk towards the source. Help me. Zhuyifan rushed to it to see a Luo clan's guard buried in bodies, with blood pouring from his mouth. Humph, the affairs of mortals have nothing to do with me. His eyes shrank and shook his head as he was about to leave. The previous Zhuyifan would have done his best in helping the man. But he was now replaced by the demonic emperor Zhuiyifan. To Yifan, the Luo clan were nothing but ants to him. Who was so bored as to save an ant's life? He took only 2 steps before stopping. Recalling something, he dropped down cross-legged to inspect his body. Not a moment passed and Zhuyifan flashed his eyes open with glee. This kid is 15 yet has never cultivated. His body is untainted. On the Martial Emperor continent, most could cultivate. Even farmers would have a first or second layer in the foundation establishment stage. It was rarer to find a 15 years old who never cultivated once. And the strongest cultivation method is the 9 Serenities secret records, demon transformation art, who could use others' cultivation and later allow one to swallow the heavens and devour the earth, reaching the highest realm of power in this world, needed a pure body to train in it. This cultivation method was something the 9 Serenities Emperor comprehended only after he entered the Emperor stage. Just when he was contemplating destroying his cultivation and starting anew, he suffered at the hands of the other Emperor stage experts. In ancient times, the 9 Serenities Emperor was among the top 3 strongest emperors. For it to make even him consider restarting his cultivation, this cultivation method must be of tremendous might. Maybe it surpassed even a heaven-ranked cultivation method. As such, once Zhuiyifan obtained it, he began to consider his next course of action. But before he could decide, the 7 emperors and Zhao Qin came and forced him on this path. With a pure body, the effect would be even more pronounced. At this point, Zhuofan returned to the guard. He removed the corpses covering him and pulled him out of the rest. Empty eyes watched as he got pulled from the brink of death. The guard smiled, "Ah, it's you, Zhuofan. Thank you, I'll repay you when we get back." He, why wait when you can just as well do it now? With a corner of his mouth perked up, Zhuofan exposed an odd smile. The guard froze as a chill seized his heart. As they were both from the Luo clan, this wasn't the first time he saw Zhuofan. But this was his first time watching such a sinister expression. It was akin to how a wolf would set its sights on a rabbit. "Zhuofan. What are you going to do?" The guard watched him vigilant. Zhuofan ignored him as he watched with the same smile, mumbling all the while, "Not bad, a second layer of qi condensation cultivation. Solid foundation material." While other cultivation methods absorbed the spiritual energy around them to refine the host's body, the demon transformation art robbed others of their cultivation to further his own. But how could a normal man steal from a cultivator? When the target was wounded, of course, to the point he couldn't even move. This was the reason for Zhui Yifan's uncertainty to abolish his cultivation at the time. If such an encounter never happened, he would have been immortal for the rest of his life. It would end in a complete loss, something he believed caused even the 9 Serenities Emperor to hesitate at that time. Yet, here he was, with a newly possessed body that the heavens dropped on his lap. Truly something only found by luck. Seeing the insidious Zhuofan watching him like a rogue watched a beauty, the guard's heart never knew rest as he shouted, "Why that you're not Zhuofan?" He, correct. The evil laughter further emphasized Zhuofan's malevolent look, "I am the sacred domain's 8th emperor, demonic emperor Zhui Yifan." Chapter 3, Demon Transformation Art. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The guard watched in horror as Zhuofan raised a palm over his head and began operating his cultivation method. Black streams came from it, twisting like worms as they burrowed into the guard's body. The moment they entered, the guard's face changed. His horrified visage, twisted from pain, now darkened the pale face from the extreme blood loss. With each passing moment, the man inched closer to turning as black as charcoal. In the dark night, even if one didn't pay attention, no one would claim him to be a human. This perked Zhuofan up, riveted in excitement to the sight before him. Demon transformation art might take others' cultivation as his own, but when was it that easy to steal one's yuan qi? Even if he did, it would probably reject him. He needed to show extreme caution, especially now when he was building his foundation. Therefore, Zhuofan chose to first demonify it before absorbing it. Taking a deep breath to calm his excitement, his hand tightened and the black streams began to flow back from the guard into his body as the guard himself was withering in front of his naked eye. An hour later, Zhuofan took back his hand and sat cross-legged, beginning to refine the new yuan qi. The guard collapsed and scattered to ashes. It was as if an ancient corpse was unearthed only to scatter in the wind the moment they made contact. 9 Serenities Emperor's creation not only took others' cultivation but also their essence. The black energy roamed around his body like a flood. Zhuofan sank into concentration as he operated the cultivation method to make the energy flow through his meridians and widening little by little. The entire power of a qi condensation expert flowed through his untrained body. The force was on the verge of bursting his meridians as his forehead broke out in sweat. But he pushed through because he knew this power could build a never-before-seen foundation. Such a stable foundation would guarantee an easier and smoother path of cultivation. Time passed 1 second at a time for 2 hours long hours, as Zhuofan gnashed his teeth and sweat poured from him like a river. He loosened his jaw only on the 6th hour, when the black energy, after roaming his body for hundreds of times, gathered in his dantian and settled in the form of a black lake. He slowly opened his eyes and released a long breath. The clouds in the horizon began to brighten, and the stuffed wild animals returned to the depths of the forest. It's dawn. Ha. I didn't expect for a second layer qi condensation's cultivation would require an entire night. Zhuo Fan shook his head and examined his body. Bang! A loud sound echoed and the rock crumbled under the Zhuo Fan's frail punch. Zhuo Fan nodded in satisfaction. The qi condensation expert's cultivation refined his body and improved it greatly. Based on his body strength alone, he was no weaker than a qi condensation expert. Next he inspected his cultivation. He was calm before, but that look scared the living daylight out of him. As for his cultivation, not only did it reach the 5th layer of foundation establishment, the yuan qi inside him was that of qi condensation, and not of foundation establishment. Man, this demon transformation art is fantastic. Zhuo Fan couldn't help smacking his lips, being secretly delighted. Generally speaking, even those rare geniuses from the sacred domain needed a year to reach the 5th layer of foundation establishment. Yet, he needed one night to do what others had to work for 2.3 years to attain. It won't be long before I return to the sacred domain. Zhuo Fan snickered. Just as he was indulging in his fantasy when he returned, shouts woke him up. Frowning, he walked cautiously in their direction. He was clear on his limitations. Even if he had a 5th layer foundation establishment cultivation, this little achievement couldn't deal with the simplest martial skill. He had no power to retaliate if he met an expert. As such, being prudent took first priority. After all, he wasn't the all-powerful demonic emperor right now. With steps as light as a cat, he neared a bush. Zhuo Fan pushed aside the leaves to see two parties in a stalemate. One had more than a dozen men, Luo clan's guards surrounding an 18-year-old girl and a 6-year-old boy. The other group wore black and was led by an old man, over 20 people. The man was familiar to Zhuo Fan. He recalled seeing him in the Luo clan as their steward. Then the pair surrounded by the guards had to be Luo clan's young master, Luo Yunhai, and young miss, Luo Yunchang. Humph, no wonder the mountain bandits breached the tight security of the Luo clan guards, we had a traitor amongst us. Zhuo Fan sneered inside. He recalled his disciple and clenched his fists. In his past life, he was betrayed by his disciples, and the one he possessed now died from a similar result. He couldn't help relating a bit to the body he occupied. BDNV, but he soon shook his head inside, ready to turn around and leave. With his strength, he had no way of helping them. Besides, there was nothing tying him to the Luo clan. It just wasn't worth throwing his life away for. Yet, he only took 2 steps before his heart seized with pain. The 3rd step never came. Chapter 4, Heart Demon. You are listening at novelfull.audio. In fear, Zhuo Fan tightened a hand over his chest. The pain was so excruciating, it brought him to his knees, mumbling, "What's going on? Did my cultivation deviate?" His heart welled with panic. If he deviated right as he built his foundation, the result wasn't as simple as losing all progress. He would never again be capable of cultivation, he would become a cripple. But the pain left as soon as it came. Zhuo Fan stood up and took a deep breath. He couldn't make heads or tails of it. Yet the next step brought with it the same heartache. No, this isn't deviation but heart demon. Thinking of this, he began to look for the source of the heart demon. If a cultivator ignored it, he wasn't far from deviating and becoming a demon. Zhuo Fan soon found its source, but the result left him feeling discontent. Before being possessed, Zhuo Fan was a devoted servant. Luo clan's young miss was very kind to him and so he pledged life-long devotion to the clan. The resentment before death was born out of regret of not protecting the Luo clan. It was then the demonic emperor's hatred and his resentment fused, possessing his soul and breathing life into his body. And his resentment became a contract with the demonic emperor, turning into his shackles. In short, the demonic emperor lived so he could replace him in protecting the Luo clan, or the heart demon would haunt him. Blast it. This punk is the worst. He wants me to be a servant. Zhuo Fan wanted to cry but no tears came out as he kept cursing. How could the glorious and magnificent demonic emperor Zhui Yifan, the 8th emperor of the sacred domain, be tied down by some nameless clan? Yet the heart demon couldn't be ignored either. Helpless, he caressed his forehead. It would be better if a punk like you wished for vengeance instead. This way, it would have taken me a few years to kill him. Yet. You went and ruined my life. Who's there? Show yourself. An aged voice shouted and Zhuo Fan sensed a thick killing intent aimed at his location. Shaking his head, he sighed and walked out. Since he got found out, he might as well go deal with that traitorous Steward Sunday. Seeing who it was, Steward's son smiled with derision. Humph, I wondered who it could be, when in fact it was just a little bastard. Then Steward's son turned to Luo Yunchang, paying him no heed. Young miss, I advise you to hand over the returning dragon palm martial art to avoid any unnecessary casualties. I don't think you want that either. Rubbish, geezer son, you traitor. As long as we're here, you won't harm a single hair on young miss and young master. The Luo clan's guard captain took a step forward. Luo Yunchang glared back, her pretty face filled with resolve. Steward's son, returning dragon palm is a spirit-ranked martial art handed down in the Luo clan for generations. We will never hand it over. Zhuo Fan snorted inside. He was wondering why the mountain bandits raided the Luo clan. It was all for a mere spirit-ranked martial art. On the Martial Emperor continent, all cultivation methods and martial arts were divided into 5 ranks. Spirit, Profound, Earth and Heaven. Each in turn was split in low, mid and high. In Sacred Domain, spirit-ranked martial arts were at every corner mere trash in the eyes of a demonic emperor such as himself. He had thousands of them already. It was a total waste to die for such junk. Zhuo Fan sighed and shouted bored, young miss, it's just a spirit-ranked martial art. Just give it to him and I'll just give you another. All eyes quivered in shock, then looked at him like a nutcase. Zhuo Fan, quite the cheeky tone you have there. Taking out a random spirit-ranked martial art. On what grounds can a 15-year-old Luo clan servant do that? Ha. Steward's son threw his head back and laughed, eyes filled with mockery. Even the bandits followed with their taunting laughter, not hiding their ridicule. While the guards looked at him in doubt. Even his former friends familiar with him looked oddly. This kid is usually honest. Why does he speak nonsense all of a sudden? Did the mountain bandits scared him silly? That must be it. With that, all guards changed their looks into those of sympathy. Zhuo Fan saw through them and just shrugged. His repertoire wasn't limited to spirit-ranked martial art, and even included Demon Emperor's ancient art, the 9 Serenities secret records. But they'd never believe him. Zhuo Fan, enough nonsense. Hurry up and look after the young master. Zhuo Fan turned at the scolding voice to find Luo Yunchang in a mask of rage. But her eyes conveyed a trace of pity. Chapter 5, Obnoxious Servant. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Perking up into a grin, Zhuo Fan picked up on her intent. Young miss had to be thinking he was insane, yet she still did not want him to die. As they were speaking, she was looking for a chance to hide him behind the guards. What are you waiting for? Get him over here before he humiliates us further. Luo Yunchang shouted at the guards. Before anyone even moved, a bloody blade rested on Zhuo Fan's neck. Wait. Steward's son snickered, his eyes piercing through Luo Yunchang's as he had figured out her plan. He, young miss is as kind as ever, wanting to save even a mentally unstable servant. Luo Yunchang raged, Steward's son, you won't let even the demented live. Ha, right back at you. If you don't want the innocent to die, take out the returning dragon palm. We don't care if our blades get slick with the blood of one more man. With that, the bandit brushed the edge along Zhuo Fan's face and sported a bloodthirsty grin. Luo Yunchang pursed her lips, hesitation visible in her eyes, yet still decided to close them. Zhuo Fan understood. Although the young miss had no plan to save him by taking the martial art out, as his mistress, it filled him with gratitude just from hesitating. But in the end, it would come down to him if he could save himself. Taking a look back at the bandit, he found a fat man of the same height at 7th layer of foundation establishment. It should be doable. Zhuo Fan clenched his fist and gathered Yuan Qi in his left, eyes flashing with ruthlessness. Humph, since you're so stubborn, Zhuo Fan will be the first to die because of you. Steward Sun's hand dropped, staring at Luo Yunchang's pain-filled eyes. Fatty, kill him. He grinned, and raised the blade way up high. It was then that a thump echoed out, soon followed by bone snapping along with the fat man's wails. His blade had long ago slipped from his hand. Zhuo Fan picked it up and decapitated the man. Blood spurted and a large head trailed the air. Zhuo Fan was only in the 5th layer of foundation establishment, yet his Yuan Qi was something only a Qi condensation expert would possess. In a moment of the fat man's ignorance, he elbowed his chest and snapped his ribcage. He followed with a swing of the sword in one smooth motion. None could even react as the fat man's head flew from his shoulder. Plop! The bloody head rolled around and stopped right before Steward Sunday. He looked dumbly at the familiar face, incredulous of the outcome. He saw Zhuo Fan grow up in the Luo clan and knew the kind of person he was. He was honest to a fault, a slave begging to be picked on. Yet this sheep bared its fangs like a tiger, killing a 7th layer foundation establishment expert in one strike. It was done with such brutality that it even shook the bandits. The guards on Luo clan's side were even more devastated. Was he the same man they used to laugh with, the same honest-to-God Zhuo Fan? Leaving the kill aside, his quick and brutal act was something not even the captain of the guards could match. Every single one of them stood in shock, watching dumbly as blood dripped down Zhuo Fan's blade, to the point they forgot even to breathe. If Zhuo Fan didn't take this chance to leave, he'd never get another. Zhuo Fan's eyes squinted, pressed his advantage and threw the bloody saber at Steward Sunday, all the while running for young miss and young master. By the time the saber arrived, he was already before Luo Yunchang. One hand held Luo Yunhai while the other grabbed her, running like hell deeper into the forest. Luo Yunchang was still in a daze, letting him pull her. Steward Sun saw the target slipping away again and panicked, after them. But the captain and his guards were there to block them. Humph, think you can stop us? Steward Sun said with cruelty. The captain smiled and shook his head. No, but we can buy them some time for them to get away. He, with you dead, you still think they can escape? Taking one last look in their direction, the captain nodded. If it was before, perhaps no. But they have that boy. The guards nodded, with their trust in Zhuo Fan beginning to grow in their hearts. They might not know why Zhuo Fan was so bold all of a sudden, but with him next to the young miss and young master, their chances of survival were high. Gnashing his teeth, Steward's son looked darkly beyond them. That brat dares to meddle in my affairs. Once I get my hands on him, I will flay him. I'll make him wish for death. Chapter 6, Vile Servant. Actually, you are listening at novelfull.audio. Zhuo Fan carried Luo Yunhai in one hand while the other pulled the tender arm of Luo Yunchang in his mad dash, leaving behind the cries and wails of the guards at their backs. Wait, we can't just leave them. Luo Yunchang recovered after a while and said anxiously. Zhuo Fan kept going without paying her any heed. Let go. Luo Yunchang saw him disobeying her and threw his hand off. Zhuo Fan stopped and stared her down. We need to go back. We can't let the guards throw their life away for us. Can you beat them? Said Zhuo Fan. Luo Yunchang sighed with a frown. The others are bad enough, but they have Steward's son. in the 6th layer of chi condensation while I am only in the 3rd layer and the captain in the 4th. Even if we join forces, we are still no match for him. What's the point of returning then? Let's go. Zhuo Fan snorted and grabbed her again to dash. It was now that the child in his other hand squirmed. Stinky slave, how dare you talk back to your master? Apologize to my sister and I won't let you but blossom in pain. Zhuo Fan looked in a daze, the pup bearing his fangs in his arm then looked at Luo Yunchang. The young miss was angry. Recalling he was but a mere servant of the Luo clan, only now did his disrespectful words sink in. But so what? He wasn't the real Zhuo Fan anyway. Moreover, they weren't exactly the same revered Luo clan either. Your family is on the brink of being exterminated yet you have time to nitpick. If not for the heart demon, the majestic demonic emperor would have never even minded your trifling matters. Brat, think I won't make your butt blossom? Zhuo Fan stared at Luo Yunhai. You dare, slave. Luo Yunhai glared back without fear. He grew up in the manor and knew of the gap in their status. How could he ever come to fear a servant's threat? Such a pity the one before him wasn't Luo clan's servant. With a grin, Zhuo Fan bent him over the knee, pulled his pants and slapped like no tomorrow. The sonorous slaps rang in their ears, striking Luo Yunhai and Luo Yunchang dumb. They never dreamed of this ever happening. A servant daring to slap a master's bum. To the point even the bratty Luo Yunhai forgot about the pain. But he soon got a taste of the scorching sting on his rear. Impudent! Luo Yunchang cried in alarm, wrestling her brother from him and into her embrace. Zhuo Fan, you dare raise your hand against your master. Luo Yunchang was known in the clan for her gentle nature, and warm and refined demeanor, a girl from a wealthy family that never got angry. But Zhuo Fan's act took the cake and made the rage inside her burn like never before. Zhuo Fan avoided her eyes as he sneered, not as daring as young miss. To the point of wasting time berating others while the enemy is just around the corner. The noise behind them was getting weaker. Zhuo Fan and Luo Yunchang were clear the guards couldn't hold on much longer. I only slapped him a few times, but if you do not run, those men will soon take his life. Zhuo Fan pointed at Luo Yunhai. Luo Yunhai was still angry but Zhuo Fan's words struck close to home. Her brother was the only male left in the clan. She could sacrifice herself, but nothing must happen to him. After some thought, she became serious. Zhuo Fan, take young master and leave while I stall them. I refuse, blurted Zhuo Fan, if you dare leave, I will kill this brat. You. She was at a loss for words. Never would she have imagined her clan would house such an arrogant and impudent servant that would dare threaten their master. I've lived in the Luo clan for all my life and do not know the surrounding. If you leave, me and the brat won't make it. Zhuo Fan continued. Luo Yunchang nodded in silence, her anger cooling. It made sense. But the next words flamed her anger to new heights, staring daggers at him. It won't mean much even if you die, but try not to take me down with you, you. Luo Yunchang turned green, but held it in. He ignored the pair and turned to walk. Is there any place nearby where we can hide? Snorting, Luo Yunchang glared at him while ignoring the insufferable servant. But she was a young miss after all, and even though her anger never waned, she still knew to look past it in this dangerous situation. There's only farmland around us for 100 miles and only the west face of the Black Wind Mountain is the only place few people venture in. It is a forest covered in fog that not even the mountain bandits know in detail. Then, that's where we'll go. Zhuo Fan nodded, carry your brother and lead the way. She snorted and walked forward without sparing him another look. Just how could she stumble upon such bad luck, where the two siblings were now accompanied by an arrogant and rotten slave? She was in front and he was in the back, it was as if the master-servant roles were reversed. Never had the siblings suffered such humiliation. Chapter 7, Wraith Array. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Translator. Star Reader Editor. Sullivan looking for proofreaders for this novel. 4 hours later, they found them before a fog-wreathed forest. Zhuo Fan's eyes flashed each time they roamed over the trees swallowed by the mist. This is misty forest, covered in fog year-round. Any who enters will find it hard to come out. Luo Yunchang hesitated. We might lose them there, but we might also get lost for all eternity. Zhuo Fan didn't pay her much heed, inspecting the area, especially the mountain in the east, which was surrounded by clouds. Is that Black Wind Mountain? Luo Yunchang nodded. My dad said Black Wind Mountain's mountain lord has great power, no less than his. Our clans have been fine for decades yet, for some reason, their bandits attacked out manor. He, good place. Zhuo Fan rubbed his chin, showing heartfelt admiration. Azure Dragon in the east, White Tiger in the west, Vermilion Bird in the south, Black Tortoise in the north, and Qilin's Horn in the center, breaking the sky. This is a natural array. Zhuo Fan mumbled, such a pity, no one knowledgeable discovered it. Now that I'm here, I'll make this place my second Devil Mountain. Zhuo Fan's eyes flashed with joy. He was clear of this mountain's value. If this was sacred domain, only a saint could grab hold of such a place. Young miss, want to kill Steward's son and the rest here? Zhuo Fan turned his head. Luo Yunchang was startled. They only numbered 3 while a strong party was hunting them down and they had hardly enough time to escape. Just how were they going to destroy them? Luo Yunhai snorted and smiled wryly at Zhuo Fan. Stinky slave, stop bragging. Is your butt itchy again? Zhuo Fan's glare stuck Luo Yunhai's words in his throat. That round of slapping to his rear told him this servant couldn't care less for this young master. Humph, a wise man knows when to retreat. Once I get home, I'll see how tough you are. He mumbled on his sister's shoulder. With her brother in her arms and to avoid the vile servant's wrath, Luo Yunchang asked in doubt, how? With a light smile, Zhuo Fan extended his arm. Young miss, how many spirit stones do you have? Please give them all to me. What do you need them for? Luo Yunchang watched him with a vigilant eye. Ha, young miss misunderstands, I'm not trying to take advantage of a declined clan and turn into an evil servant that robs it. All my actions are for your safety. Humph, still consider yourself a loyal servant. The way I see it, there's not a viler servant out there who can outmatch you. Luo Yunchang rubbed her pitiful brother's butt, as she thought that, but still gave him her ring. This is all my wealth. If you dare lie to me, I will never forgive you. Zhuo Fan took it with a smile and sank in the mist. Wait for me here. Humph, this servant is too outrageous. He even dares to order his master. Sister, you need to punish him for me. Luo Yunhai raved once the servant was gone. She shook her head and looked at the roaming mist. Yunhai, he might be rude, but he's always helping us, much better than those strong hypocrites. We can't reward kindness with enmity. Luo Yunhai thought for a moment then nodded, yes, it's all that damned steward son's fault. Luo Yunchang was pleased and praised him. Yunhai, you're growing up. But then he hissed through his teeth, as for that stinky slave, he should be spanked like no tomorrow. Killing him is too easy for him. Luo Yunchang was silent. Zhuo Fan walked among the white fog, his deep eyes taking in his surroundings. From time to time, his hand flashed and a spirit stone flew out from the ring and disappeared into the ground. Despite it being his first time here, he was remarkably familiar with its layout. His path never once was disturbed by the fog. In but a quarter of an hour, he traveled across the entire forest. 9 underworld gates open. For Cardinal Wraith Array activate. His hands made signs with lightning speed, while he spoke the incantation from the 9 Serenity's secret records. The wind shifted and the sky darkened. With wails, gray shadows fell from the sky and hid in the misty forest. The fog reddened, then blackened, the same color as the sky. Constant shrieks came out. The siblings held closer to each other, shaking in fear while taking steps back for some semblance of comfort. Yet the wails and shrieks stopped as soon as they started, while the sky cleared up and even the sun peeked through the clouds. Misty forest's fog dissipated and revealed a gasping Zhuofan walking over. What just happened? What did you do? Luo Yunchang watched him with bewilderment. He only waved and entered the forest. Follow me. Luo Yunchang was suspicious, however she led her brother behind. Zhuofan had a mysterious appearance that made the two not voice their doubts. When they arrived at an ancient tree, Zhuofan said, "Stay below this tree for now. I will teach you how to control the Wraith Array, and when Steward's son comes, you can use it to kill them." What? This is an array. Luo Yunchang was stunned. Arrays were even more precious than martial arts in this world. No sect would ever dare release even a normal array to outside. Even if the auction had a first-grade array, it would still sell for hundreds of thousands spirit stones. They were rare and in high demand. If their Cloud Manor had a protective array, they would have never sunk so low from mere bandits. Yet, at this very moment, a mere servant casually set up an array. It was impossible that this feat would result in the young miss being shocked silly. Chapter 8, Baiting the Enemy. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Translator. Star Reader Editor. Sullivan looking for proofreaders for this novel. How can you forget about how for now, and do what I said? This is a bewildering array which can affect the perceptions of others inside. And this is also a killing array, controlling wraiths to kill your enemies. Luo Yunchang copied stiffly as Zhuofan performed the gestures. However, he was too fast. She could only watch him do it as she fumbled to a stop. Unable to remember the movements as he carried on, stuck on the last sign she did. Sigh, how are you so slow? This is the simplest method. Zhuofan got angry and cursed, if you keep going like this, Steward's son will be upon us. We might as well just serve ourselves on a silver platter. You're as slow as a pig. All her life, Luo Yunchang was handled with finesse and attention a pearl would need. She received others' love and respect. Never has she been mistreated like this, degraded to such a degree. Glittering tears started welling in her eyes as she lowered her head. Yet, she persevered. Seeing his sister humiliated, he found courage and shouted at Zhuofan, "Stinky slave, don't mock my sister." Zhuofan just shook his head, not having the time to bicker with the brat. He found his yuan qi was only enough to start the array, failing to control it. If one were to speak of a complete wraith array, even if none of them controlled it, a trash like Steward's son would end up beaten to a pulp either way. However, he only had around 1,000 spirit stones. If not for being a natural array, he wouldn't have been able to set even a damaged one. It was now in the hands of third-layer Qi condensation young miss to control the array. But for her, the method was long and complicated. It was hard to grasp. Worse, they were on the clock. Helpless, Zhuofan embraced her from behind and took hold of her hands. "What are you doing?" Luo Yunchang froze up as her cheek blossomed with red. "Don't move and let me guide you." Zhuofan led her hands and taught her the signs. Despite catching his intent, being embraced by an unfamiliar man threw her heart in chaos and cheeks burned hotter, since this was the first time it ever happened to her. Each time her mind drifted, a voice would ring in her ear, "Pay attention." She peeked at him and saw how serious Zhuofan was, that his actions were not aimed to take advantage of her. Humph, he knows when to be a gentleman. Luo Yunchang calmed down and her body drew nearer to his. Feeling the strong arm behind her, this was the first time in the last 3 days she felt safe. Steward Sunday they went towards the misty forest. 10 miles outside the misty forest, a lanky bandit checked for tracks and reported to him. With cold laughter, Steward's son straightened his white mustache, "Quite a good hiding place. We know the mountain area but not that eerie place. However, Steward's son looked at the bound captain and his eyes flashed with an evil glint. Captain Pang, you're up soon. With how kind young miss is, she won't ignore your pleas. Tui, don't think you can use me to threaten young miss. His eyes were bloodshot as he glared at Steward Sunday. You'd better kill me, or I will murder you and avenge my fellow guards. Ha. When I get the martial skill, I'll be happy to fulfill your wish. Squinting his eyes, Steward's son let out a creepy laughter. Let's go. It took an hour for their group of 20 to reach Misty Forest. Yet before they could get any closer, snoring came from a man sleeping against a tree. A careful look identified him as Zhuo Fan. Steward's son, it's the one who killed the fatty. Woken up by the voice, Zhuo Fan yawned and opened his weary eyes. Seeing Steward's son in company, he showed no fear, no anxiety. Instead, a smile. Steward's son, I've waited so long to see you. Frowning, Steward's son watched him. He eyed him with utmost care, yet nothing seemed to tell him anything. He was just calm. What a deep-rooted schemer you are. I underestimated you, thought Steward Sunday. If it were any other time, he would have never paid attention to a servant. But ever since Steward's son witnessed Zhuo Fan kill so brutally, Steward's son's image of him turned upside down. This punk not only hid deeply, but he's also ruthless. If he matures, only suffering awaits. Zhuo Fan, you've quite the nerve to show off before me, squinted Steward's son at him. Zhuo Fan cut to the chase instead of replying, Steward's son, want to make a deal. What deal? I'll give you the Luo clan's young master and mistress. So, secure my career in Black Wind Mountain. What? Not only was Steward's son shocked, but even the guard captain was also dumbfounded. He rested his hopes on Zhuo Fan to take the siblings far away. Who'd have thought Zhuo Fan would defect and use them as bargaining chips? Why are you doing this? Luo clan hasn't scorned you, doubts arose in Steward's son's heart. Ha, then why do you? Luo clan treated you even better. Steward's son reddened at this and felt his rage boiling. As he calmed himself, Zhuo Fan continued, every man for himself. With how much the Luo clan has fallen, reviving it isn't something one man can do. Why should I walk towards my death? Using them to secure my life is but human nature. He picked the red rope from the ground who followed into the mist. Young miss is at one of the ends of the rope. I left a few forks on the rope along the way that only I know about. Steward's son nodded as he grabbed it, good plan, to use a rope to mark your way. And you even included forks to safeguard the right trail for yourself. A true double-crosser, ha. He gave the rope back, deal, lead the way. But don't even think of playing tricks. Steward's son, I am an honest man. Smiled Zhuo Fan. Steward's son sneered, I would have believed you before but now. Who would? The two locked their eyes, each laughing as their looks hid devious thoughts. Doviko the captain's hair stood on end. He kept cursing Steward's son as a rotten and vile human, while he barked at Zhuo Fan as one who betrayed their master. Though everyone ignored him as he was escorted by other men as they ventured into the thick mist. Chapter 9, The Array's Power. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The row of people stuck together and held on to the red rope as they walked through the mist. Zhuo Fan went first with Steward's son right behind him. Holding onto him with a firm grip on to prevent the boy from escaping. Because of the thick mist, one couldn't even see the figure of the one in front and relied on their hands to feel their neighbor. At the heart of the misty forest, where it was impossible for anyone to escape, Zhuo Fan stopped. What is it? Steward's son was feeling apprehensive, tightening his grip on Zhuo Fan's clothes. With a snicker, Zhuo Fan said, Steward's son, we'll be pairing here. It's best if you travel the underworld river without me. With acute fear, Steward's son discovered he fell in Zhuo Fan's trap. He pulled Zhuo Fan close and slapped him. The clothes were turned to ribbons, but instead of Zhuo Fan, they held a log. When did he escape? He'd been holding tight on Zhuo Fan to prevent his escape, yet reality showed the opposite. Turn back, quick. Steward's son rushed from where they came. As soon as he shouted, the men used the rope to retrace their path. But then, a shout came from the mist, the rope has been cut. It was as if lightning struck them and they all turned pale. How would they get out of this thick mist without the rope? Steward's son stomped as he gnashed his teeth, blasted. That brat got us. Bring that damn Pang over. Steward's son, he's gone. Bastard. Steward's son punched the ground and made a meter-wide hole in rage. He was a schemer himself, yet he fell at the hands of a stinky brat. Damn punk, I've played this game longer than you. Don't think a puny misty forest can trap me. Steward's son roared towards the sky. Once I get out, I'll tear you to pieces, Doviko, ha, you'll never have the chance. With Zhuo Fan's mad laughter as the signal, the mist reddened. Why is the mist turning red? They were in shock by the sudden change. They were bandits that killed people for a living, yet these strange circumstances had them on edge. Steward's son, you are wiser than most. Can you tell us what this is? Even though the bandit shouted, only silence echoed back. He felt around him yet touched no one, as if everyone around him vanished and left him all alone. He wasn't the only one. The people that hung on to the rope began to vanish one at a time. Steward's son could hardly believe what was happening. Can this be an array? One as old as Steward's son has seen many things and experienced even more, yet the more he knew, the more he realized how terrible arrays were and fears grip his heart. An array worked using heaven and earth's energy. As long as a man controlled it, it could wipe out a dozen equal to him in power. Even if tens of experts gathered, they still could not measure to its power. Of all the possibilities he thought of, not once did he consider being trapped in an array. Zhuo Fan, who exactly are you? Steward's son trembles from the feeling of dread. He saw at last that Zhuo Fan wasn't just any ordinary man. How could a simple man know how to use or set up arrays? If Zhuo Fan had taken out an array when they met, he wouldn't have had the nerve to chase him. Standing in the center of the array, Luo Yunchang was clear of the situation. Her eyes drifted to Zhuo, filled with intrigue. Squinting, Zhuo Fan kept a cold and callous expression as he said, "Kill them." She followed his order by following his hand signs. The blood-red fog changed again, this time black, and swallowed all that laid within. Now they couldn't even see themselves. Only their ears picked the mournful wails of thousands of wraiths. With fear as their only companion, they lost all their will to resist once the black streams of energy started burrowing inside them. They felt their soul devoured yet were powerless to resist. All succumbed to terror at this point. Smirking, Zhuo Fan's eyes shined with glee. He left Luo Yunchang and sat cross-legged in another center of the array. The 9 Serenities secret record stated that the demon transformation art user had a backdoor into all arrays. The men in the array were driven mad, and all he needed to do now was to absorb their yuan qi. Chapter 10, Constant Breakthrough. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Looking for proofreaders for this novel, Ashes to Ashes, Dust to Dust, 9 underworld wraiths returned to me. Zhuo Fan's hands moved as he stole the array from under Luo Yunchang's control while also making the clear figures of Steward's son and the rest disappear from her mind. Luo Yunchang felt it odd and redo the signs to no avail. Ah! The misty forest was drowned with shrieks and wails. Steward's son and the rest became pitch-black but still had a sliver of awareness left as black shadows left their body. Each time one flew out, it evoked cries of torment as if pieces were ripped from its body. When the last shadow left, the cries stopped and so did their life. Their body dried up like a mummy and they turned to dust. In the darkness, the shadows returned like bees to Zhuo Fan and entered his body. He accepted them with a calm face, and soon his body turned black just like Steward Sun did. When the last shadow burrowed, he began doing hand signs to practice the demon transformation art. The still black yuan qi inside him boiled as it charged through his meridians and settled in his dantian. And his power grew with it. In an instant, he entered the 6th layer of foundation establishment. In the next instant, he was in the 7th. And then, he was at peak 7th layer. He kept going like this through the 8th layer, then the 9th, until the peak of foundation establishment. He opened his eyes and took a deep breath as he clenched his hands, feeling the power course through him. This time, it wasn't as easy. The wraiths were almost spent when he demonified the yuan qi for himself. But with his experience as a veteran demonic cultivator, he understood that breaking through in a state of exhausted yuan qi holds much more value with his future progress. He clenched his teeth and operated the cultivation method. He sucked the wraiths dry and used the remaining yuan qi he had to make one final push. Bang! Chua Fan heard something explode. He felt as if a dam broke and his body coursed with powerful yuan qi, then settled in his dantian to replenish his spent reserves. This act of scraping for the last traces of energy enlarged his meridians by more than double. Qi condensation. Chua Fan's eyes opened with glee. Even when he did this in his previous life, his meridians were nowhere near as wide as they were now. And the yuan qi in his dantian allowed him to face an expert at qi condensation. He was 3 times as powerful as before. He released a long breath and made some hand signs to release the wraiths. They turned back to gray and he went back to normal. When all wraiths were gone, Chua Fan stood up and a single wave from his hands pushed away the black fog, allowing the sun's rays to land on the forest. He could now control the array himself, no longer needing Luo Yunchang's assistance. He showed a small smile as he looked at the sky. Now that I'm in the qi condensation, I can practice some martial arts. Despite the end of Steward Sun and his retinue of bandits, Chua Fan had managed to free the Luo clan siblings. It could be said Chua Fan benefited the most out of this. Without devouring Steward Sun, he would have never reached qi condensation. It was at this stage that he could practice martial arts. Later, not only could he defend himself, but also easier to devour others, becoming stronger himself. Chua Fan. A clear shout came from Luo Yunchang as she came over, embracing her brother. Meanwhile, the guard captain followed behind. Where did you run off to? Why did I lose control of the array? Perhaps there were too few spirit stones and the array collapsed. I just saw Steward Sun die. This is worthy of celebration. No one escaped, dodged Chua Fan. He wasn't about to reveal his secret, because in this world, demonic cultivators were strong, uncanny and cultivated with shocking speed. And his demon transformation art was even more monstrous. If others knew, he'd be a public enemy. This was why he died last time. So, for his second life, he made sure to avoid any mistakes. Luo Yunchang nodded, believing him. After some hesitation, Captain Pang toughened his resolve and kneeled. Brother Chua Fan, I was too reckless before, unaware of your plan, and still cursed you. If you must punish me, I will accept any that you might have for me. Even if you ask for my head, I will gladly offer it. Chua Fan nodded inside. Captain Pang was a loyal retainer. If Xiao Chen had this level of devotion, Chua Fan wouldn't have fallen so low. Sighing inside, he helped Captain Pang up. Captain Pang is a captain of the guards while I am just a mere servant. How could I receive such courtesy? Moreover, we have young Miss to thank for setting up an array to eliminate Steward Sun's group. Luo Yunchang watched him, confused. Only nodding when he threw Luo Yunchang a look. Although Luo Yunchang didn't know why Xiao Chen avoided admitting he was the one who set the array, he did save her and still deferred for her opinion. Captain Pang turned to Luo Yunchang in shock. Young Miss knows arrays. Luo Yunchang laughed, embarrassed, forced to admit it. Heaven protected the Luo clan. Young Miss knows arrays, our rise is imminent. Captain Pang threw his head back and laughed, exhilarated by the prospect. Chua Fan rubbed his nose. Luo Yunchang stole a glance at Chua Fan. If Luo clan is to rise, it's only thanks to this man.